I've always enjoyed fishing in the early hours of the morning. There's something about the quiet of dawn, the sound of calm water, and the near total silence that brings me a peace that's hard to find anywhere else. That night, the sky was clear, and the full moon shone over the lake, casting a silver light across the water's surface. I was alone in my small boat, in the middle of the lake, just me, my fishing rod, and the tranquility of the moment. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, at least until something started to happen. Everything was so still that even the fish seemed to avoid the surface. After a while, nearly giving up, I noticed a faint ripple in the water, as if something had just passed right beneath the boat. I leaned over, trying to see what it was, but only caught the reflection of the moon on the water's surface. A few minutes went by, and suddenly, a bright light, as strong as a spotlight, appeared from the lake's depths, directly beneath where I was. It was as if someone had turned on a giant flashlight from below. The light had a strange hue, almost an icy white, that illuminated the entire boat and left me completely blinded. I tried to look away, but the light seemed to hold me, as if calling out to me. My heart began to race, and a chill ran down my spine. It made no sense. There was nothing at the bottom of the lake that could emit such a powerful light. I tried to recall old legends that fishermen would tell about the dark waters, stories of creatures that inhabited the depths, but I'd always thought they were just tales to scare the younger ones. At that moment, I began to doubt. The light started moving, slowly and smoothly, circling the boat in an almost hypnotic motion. It would come closer, then retreat as if studying whatever was above. I moved to grab the oar and, as quietly as possible, started to row slowly to get away from that thing. But the light followed me. No matter which direction I tried, it kept following, as if determined not to let me escape. Then the light moved even closer and began to change. The intensity increased, lighting up the lake around the boat as if it were daylight, but with that otherworldly, icy blue glow. And then I saw something that nearly stopped my heart. A figure began to emerge from the light. It was tall, slender, with outlines that didn't resemble anything I'd ever seen. Its silhouette was inhuman, too thin, with elongated arms and legs, and its face, or what should have been a face, was just a smooth, dark surface where 2 points shone like empty eyes, lifeless, staring at me with impossible intensity. At that moment, I felt completely paralyzed. I couldn't look away from that thing, as if I were hypnotized. I wanted to scream, to row as fast as possible, but my body wouldn't respond. It was as if something inside me was locked, as if the creature had taken my willpower. That figure looked at me in a strange way, as if judging me, trying to understand what I was. For a moment, I thought I heard a whisper coming from deep within my mind, as if the creature itself were trying to communicate directly with me. Time seemed to stand still. I didn't know if seconds or hours had passed, but I finally managed to move my hand. I grabbed the oar with all the strength I had left and started rowing frantically, without direction, just trying to escape that thing. I rowed as if my life depended on it, and maybe it did. The creature remained there, motionless, just watching me. And then the light began to fade, weakening, until everything around me was dark once again. But my escape was far from over. I barely had time to catch my breath when I realized the light was back, now dimmer, as if lurking in the depths. Every time I looked at the water, I saw that blue glow and those same empty eyes staring at me. They would appear and disappear, circling me, like a shadow floating under the surface, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. Finally, I reached the shore, I jumped out of the boat and ran without looking back, my heart still beating so hard that I could barely breathe. Even after leaving the lake, I felt that thing watching me. In the following nights, every time I closed my eyes, the image of those empty eyes returned, like a mark that creature had left on me. I shared the story with some older fishermen, hoping someone had experienced something similar. One of them looked at me with a serious expression and told me an old legend about the guardian of the lake, an entity that lived in the deep waters, protecting secrets that no human should discover. He said that the guardian appeared as a blue light, luring those who ventured to fish in the lake at night. According to the legend, the few who had seen this light were never the same, as if part of them had stayed there, lost in the depths of the lake. To this day, I don't know exactly what I saw that night, but one thing is certain. I never returned to fish alone on that lake, and I always stay far from the deepest areas. The feeling of being watched never completely went away, and sometimes as I pass by the lake, I still see a blue glow appearing out of nowhere. It was a cold, silent dawn, and I was fishing alone in an isolated river, far from the city and any sign of human life. The darkness around me was almost absolute, interrupted only by the faint glow of a lantern on my boat and the reflection of the moon on the calm surface of the water. The fishing was peaceful, and everything seemed ordinary until something on the opposite bank of the river caught my attention. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. In the dim light, I saw the silhouette of a child sitting on the riverbank, back turned toward me, legs bent and head lowered, as if crying or hiding their face. A strange feeling crept over me. This was a deserted area, far from any village or community. There was no reason for a child to be there alone, especially at that time of night. I tried to convince myself it might be a family camping nearby, or perhaps someone who had gotten lost. But something about the scene disturbed me deeply. Rowing slowly, I approached the shore, keeping the lantern low so as not to scare the child. When I was close enough, I murmured, "Hey, are you okay?" My voice seemed to dissolve into the vastness of the night, and the child didn't move. The discomfort I felt grew, and a part of me urged me to leave, but curiosity, or perhaps a sense of duty, kept me rooted to the spot. As I got closer, I noticed some unsettling details. The child's body was unnaturally still, almost like a statue. The way they sat was stiff, and their head was tilted at an angle that sent a chill down my spine. I took a deep breath and asked again, this time a bit louder, "Do you need help?" And then, slowly, the child began to turn. When I finally saw their face, I felt my heart nearly stop. The child's eyes were completely black, with no trace of irises or pupils, just two dark patches that seemed to swallow all the light around them. Their skin was pale, almost translucent, and their face was twisted in a strange expression, somewhere between a smile and a grimace of pain. It was as if something were trying to imitate a human face but failing. I was paralyzed, unable to look away from those empty, lifeless eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. The child opened their mouth, but no sound came out, only a strange movement, as if trying to speak without a voice. My survival instincts finally kicked in, and I started rowing backward, trying to put as much distance as possible between me and that thing. But as I backed away, I saw something even more terrifying. The child was now standing, watching me leave with a twisted smile, as if amused by my fear. Even from a distance, I could feel those empty eyes watching me, piercing me in a way that made me feel exposed, vulnerable. As I rowed away, The lantern illuminated the shore one last time, and I saw the child lift an arm, pointing a thin, bony finger at the river, as if beckoning me to return. At that moment, I heard a faint whisper, almost drowned out by the sound of the water, but it seemed to invade my mind directly. The voice was strange, distorted, saying something I couldn't fully understand, but one word stood out: come. My whole body froze, and a wave of panic overtook me completely. I rowed faster than ever, trying to escape that presence that seemed to be pulling me back, even from afar. The child remained on the shore, motionless, but the darkness around them seemed to grow, as if the river itself were becoming an extension of that figure, a black void trying to reach me. Finally, I reached the furthest point I could row to, and although I was sure I had left the child behind, the feeling of being watched persisted. I stopped for a moment, trying to catch my breath and calm down. The river was silent, but it was a heavy, oppressive silence that made me feel something was wrong. I took a deep breath and prepared to leave for good. Then, I heard the sound of water being stirred, like heavy footsteps crossing the river, slow but determined. The lantern, trembling in my hands, illuminated the opposite bank once more, and my mind didn't want to believe what it saw. The child was crossing the river toward me, but in an unnatural way. It didn't appear to be swimming or walking, but dragging itself in a twisted manner, arms and legs moving at odd angles, head slightly tilted, always watching me with those empty, black eyes. I was completely paralyzed, terror rooting me to the boat, and all I could do was grip the oars tightly, trying to hold the lantern steady. The child drew closer and closer until it finally disappeared beneath the river's surface, leaving the water strangely calm. I looked around, waiting for any sign of movement, but there was none. Silence returned, but the fear lingered, a horrible feeling that whatever it was still lurked nearby, waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, I felt something touch the hull of the boat. It was a light touch, but enough to make me lose control of the lantern, which fell into the water, leaving me in darkness. In my panic, I began to row blindly, not caring which direction, only trying to escape. The sound of the water was all I could hear, each second stretching into eternity. Finally, I reached the shore, nearly tumbling out of the boat as I jumped onto solid ground. I ran without looking back, my heart still pounding in my chest, and didn't stop until I was far enough away to feel safe. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those black, empty eyes and the twisted smile of the child, like a mark that wouldn't fade. I never went back to fish on that river, and every time I pass by, I feel that chill, as if the child is still waiting for me, with their fixed gaze and that bony finger pointing at the river, calling me back. I believe some things are better left in the dark, and perhaps that river hides secrets no one should ever uncover. Fishing alone has always been one of my greatest passions. The calm, the sound of the water gently lapping against the shores, and the absolute silence of nature gave me a peace that's hard to explain. But that night, something changed, and what was supposed to be a simple fishing trip turned into a nightmare that still haunts me. It was a cold, quiet dawn, and the lake I was on showed no signs of wind or movement. The water was so still it looked like a mirror, reflecting the darkness of the sky. I was in my small boat, at a safe distance from the shore, trying to hook a big fish. The bait had been in the water for a while, and I was almost ready to give up on catching anything that night. That's when I felt a slight tug on the line. With a satisfied smile, I began reeling in, thinking I'd finally have something to show at sunrise. But as I pulled, something strange happened. The water around the boat began to stir, creating ripples that moved back and forth, as if an invisible current were circling around me. I looked around, intrigued, and noticed something that made my stomach drop. Directly below me, in the dark water, something was watching me. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Darkness can play tricks on our vision, and reflections on the water can be deceiving. But those eyes, they were there, fixed, piercing, as if waiting for the right moment to get closer. They were two bright, deep points, almost like those of an animal, but there was something wrong about them. They seemed human, and yet empty, as if they held no life at all. The air around me grew thick, and I began to feel a heavy, oppressive sensation, like it was coming from the lake itself. I looked away for a moment, trying to shake off the discomfort, but the eyes remained, watching me. When I looked back at the water, an even stronger chill ran down my spine as I realized the eyes were closer, almost touching the surface. It was as if they had moved without me noticing, approaching in a silent, predatory manner. Suddenly, my survival instincts kicked in. I felt an urgent need to get out of there, to distance myself from that unknown presence watching me from the depths. I began hurriedly gathering my things, trying to stay calm, but my movements betrayed the growing panic within me. I was about to start the boat's engine to pull away when I heard a low sound, almost a whisper, coming from beneath the water. It sounded like a call, something reverberating from within the lake and invading my mind. The words were indecipherable, but the feeling of being called was clear. My heart was pounding. I felt that if I didn't leave, something terrible would happen. But at the same time, it felt like something was keeping me anchored to the boat, as if an invisible force were pulling me toward those eyes below the water. In a moment of pure terror, I finally started the engine and began to move the boat away, trying not to look down. But even as I looked forward, I could still feel those eyes fixed on me, burning into the back of my neck with their empty, intense gaze. Midway through the return, something struck the bottom of the boat violently, nearly knocking me off balance. My entire body went cold, and for a moment, I thought the boat would capsize. I looked around frantically, but I saw nothing but the calm surface of the water, now reflecting the moon and stars as if nothing had happened. But I knew something was there, something that wasn't of this world. The feeling of being watched didn't go away, and the weight in the air seemed to increase, as if the lake itself were conspiring to keep me there. My breathing grew heavy, and each second felt like an eternity. Then, I looked at the water's surface again and saw those eyes once more. But this time, they were distorted, floating from side to side as if multiplying and spreading across the surface around the boat. No longer were there just two bright points, but dozens, hundreds of eyes staring at me, unblinking, lifeless. I was completely paralyzed with fear, unable to look away, and I felt something cold touch my leg. It was a light touch, almost subtle, but enough to make me shudder. That thing had risen from the water, and now it was trying to reach me. Without thinking, I let out a desperate scream and began rowing with all my strength, abandoning any care for my belongings and focusing solely on escaping. Each stroke of the oars seemed to bring those eyes even closer, and the muffled sound of the whisper continued, growing louder, like a chorus of voices echoing in my ears. Those unknown, dark words seemed to invade my mind, like a curse I couldn't shake off. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I reached the shore, leaping out of the boat and stumbling onto solid ground. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, but the terror still held me. I looked back at the lake one last time and, for a brief moment, I saw the eyes again. They were all there on the surface, watching my departure with an intensity that made my whole body tremble. It was as if that entity were waiting for me, inviting me to return to the lake and discover what lay in the depths. But I knew I could never step there again, never look at those waters without remembering the empty eyes and the whisper that invaded my mind. Since that night, I haven't been able to return to the lake. Every time I close my eyes, I see those eyes, and the whisper still echoes in my head like a disturbing memory. I feel that, somehow, I left part of myself in that lake, and it still calls to me, patiently waiting for the day I'll be foolish enough to return.